So for my journey, I started with my undergraduate at Central Michigan University, graduating with my bachelor's in health fitness. From there, I went straight into the University of Dayton for their DPT program, graduated there. And just how the Dayton program was set up at the time, it was a 4 clinical rotations. The first 3 were set up for basically what our coursework was. So the first rotation was acute care, second was neuro, and then the third was ortho. Then we did an independent study, which Scott mentioned he did on the Titleist Performance Institute, the golf side. I did mine on concussion. And then the fourth rotation was your elective. So as I'm going through my program, I think I want to be a neuro PT. That's my game plan. I did my rotations focused on that. My independent study was on concussion rehab, and I got paired off with a mentor from Excel named Sarah Conover, who was in the Dayton area, one of the best concussion therapists in town. So spent a little bit of time with her, found out that Excel's actually a pretty cool place, and went on to do my final rotation in an inpatient neuro setting. Also loved it, but decided at the end of my career that, or at the end of my schooling, I wanted to pursue a career with Excel physical therapy. So I submitted my resume to the email that they provided, and they said, we'll reach out if we have any openings. Well, that was about a month before I graduated, and I waited a week, waited 2 weeks, waited 3 weeks, never heard anything. So I reached out to Sarah and said, hey, I'd really love to interview with Excel if possible. I haven't heard anything. And she said, send me your resume. I'll take care of it. I sent her my resume, and then I got a call from the owner within an hour. I had a resume or an interview scheduled within 2 days. And by the end of the interview, I had a job with Excel, which if you know the owner of Excel, Greg, that's not surprising. That's just how he operated. But I was very fortunate. Excel is the only place I interviewed. It's the only place I wanted to work. So I accepted a job with them. And then from there, I started as a staff physical therapist. That was in 2016. In 2018, I was promoted to clinic director of our biggest office. It was actually a co-clinic director position because again, it's a huge clinic. We can have anywhere from, at capacity, probably 9 therapists. So it's a beast. It's a lot to handle. And so the current clinic director at the time, she was off on leave. She came back, and while she was off, people were coming to me and asking me a lot of questions. I wanted to be helpful. So I just moved into that co-clinic director position. In 2020, so 2 years later, we partnered, Excel did, with Confluent Health. And I feel like that's where my leadership journey kind of took off. And I'll mention some of the reasons for that here in a little bit. And then, as Emily mentioned, I was moved to the senior regional director position, which is basically a fancy way of saying I'm running the business operations side, which I really enjoy. That came as a good opportunity for me just because, again, somebody was leaving and exiting that position and that role. And then I was able to move into that. And then in 2023, myself and one of our clinic directors became partners at Excel Physical Therapy. So this is my 9th year practicing, and within 9 years, I'm one of the owners of a physical therapy practice, which is pretty amazing. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity, and it was a really fun looking back in the rear view, which I don't do all that often. I think that that's one of my areas of growth that I could practice. But as I went through, it was fun to kind of see that there were 3 things that kept popping up, and it was just the leadership qualities that I possessed and worked on, self-awareness and self-development, and then opportunity. So for the leadership, it was kind of it's kind of something I've always just had. Ever since I was a kid, I've been told I was a leader. I always felt like leaders were kind of born. You just had it or you didn't. And since then, I've realized that isn't true at all. But I always went with the mindset of lead by example, which was great when you're in high school, when you're even in college, that worked. But you get to PT school and everybody's excellent. Everybody's amazing. Everybody's highly motivated. Lead by example, like you kind of get left in the dust. And then when it came to becoming a staff PT and then a clinic director, when I was just trying to lead by example, people weren't following because I wasn't matching what they needed. And so in 2020, when we partnered with Confluent Health, there were a lot of other opportunities and kind of new leadership styles that I was educated on. The first two were probably the most impactful here: conscious leadership and situational leadership. Conscious leadership is just the idea of leading from a place of presence and being aware of my actions. There's a lot of different research out there. I want to make sure I get the name right. So Stephen Cartman created some interesting kind of theories around the drama triangle, and we utilize that a lot: above the line, below the line. And it basically takes any dramatic situation, anytime there's conflict, and creates these kind of buckets that you can be living in. And the cool thing is, with conscious leadership, when you're coming from a place of presence and curiosity, it allows you to switch from a place that's probably not the most productive to a more productive state. And I found that incredibly helpful for me and just really unlocked my leadership potential. In addition to that, something I was already kind of doing in the background, but has now been formalized in my understanding, is situational leadership. Situational leadership sets you up so that me as a leader, my leadership style is matching you as the person I'm leading, your need. And so we do this almost automatically most of the time, but when there's friction in a relationship, it takes a little bit of that self-awareness to recognize something's not quite right. Maybe we need to change this. And it just allows some good framework to help guide that. The last two parts are a little bit more intangible, and that's where, Scott already alluded to some of this. The trust side is that supporting, creating boundaries, accountability. How do you communicate? Are you clean? Are you clear? And do people trust you? Can they get behind you to agree to whatever you're trying to lead them to do? And that's where it plugs into the why. I think for a long time, I see myself as a very trusting person. And I think at times it works, but not having that why or that reason that you do something is super important. And so at Excel Physical Therapy, a number of years ago, we created our mission statements and our vision statements and all of these things to help kind of guide us. And over the years, we've honed them into something that's a little bit probably more true to who we are. And at Excel, our vision statement is passionately impacting lives. So if you ask me why we do something at Excel, it's always going to go back to we're passionately impacting lives. And so that's the why for the business, which is great because then we can all kind of rally behind that. But at the same time, what is my personal why? So for years, I didn't have that and I felt kind of lost at times. And so over the last year or so, I've worked with some coaches who've helped guide me and created my personal why. And so for me, it is to guide and serve with creativity and groundedness. And so when I ask myself to do something, like for example, give a talk in the Excel and PT series, if it aligns with those values, then yes, I will do it. And if not, it probably isn't serving me and it doesn't align with my personal vision. Thankfully, the business why and my personal why align quite heavily. And so it makes it easy to come into work every day and it feels almost fun. This next part, I almost just put self-development, but I don't think the self-development happens without self-awareness. My career in leadership has been a fairly rapid progression, every couple of years moving up into a different position or a different opportunity or something's coming up. And I think if I went into it thinking I knew everything, I wouldn't be where I was. I think what has served me very well is understanding I don't have all the answers, but then knowing where to go and where to find them, or just openly admitting I don't have the answers. I think is something that speaks volumes for where you are as a person, but also as a leader. So when we partnered with Confluent in 2020, they opened a lot of opportunities for me and my team. And the first one is PTville. PTville is an excellent course that basically teaches you how to be a clinic director. It teaches the basics of handling other people, handling yourself, time management, financials, all of the little things that while we probably do get some of in high or in PT school, it's not our focus, right? Like no disrespect to the University of Dayton and their education, but I was more concerned about anatomy, physiology, passing the board exam, those type of things than paying attention to the business lectures. So then from there, once you graduate from PTville, you're eligible to take the Confluent Health Managers course, which is basically a mini MBA, which allows you to continue to develop those skills, dive into the business just a little bit deeper, and take it to the next level. So it's about an 8-month program that we go through. In addition to that, the coaching, I mentioned that for my personal mission statement and personal growth and support. Uh, I've been working with a coach, Gina, who's amazing, but Allison Ellis and her entire team, Allison McManus, they all do excellent work throughout the Confluent team, and they really help support leaders in those situations that we're struggling with. And that's where the leadership coaching groups are also very similar. It's set up so that one of the coaches facilitates, and then it's a group of like-minded people. So I'm paired off with other senior regional directors. Scott would be paired off with other clinic directors. So we're all kind of going through the same thing, and that flows really well into mentorship. So finding those mentors, and this is where it echoes Scott's growth path of mentorship is always important, no matter what you're doing or where you're doing it. I have mentors in the PT field, outside the PT field, who are younger than me, who are older than me, people I can just go to and trust. I mentioned Sarah earlier. She was amazing in getting me my job. I mean, without her, I wouldn't even be here. And then the final part, I'm a big time reader, so I like my books. Scott mentioned social media. He's a little younger than I am, so he goes to the social media side. I think podcasts are a great opportunity as well. But whatever, whatever works for you, I would recommend finding something that can drive you towards whatever your goals are. Even if you don't know what they are, they have books for that. And so I went through all of the books that I've read in the last couple of years, and I would say this is my number one if you only pick one. Brad Stolberg, he is coming sort of from the sports science coaching background, does a little bit more of the executive coaching and kind of wellness space now. And he wrote a book a number of years ago called The Practice of Groundedness, which really was transformative for me. I don't know if it was just where I was in my life and my career and things like that, but having that ability to read what he was saying and then put it into practice was really impactful for me. So I think in addition to kind of the natural skills that I had in developing myself, I think opportunity is something that cannot be overlooked when it comes to my journey. This is the definition from Merriam-Webster: favorable juncture of circumstances or a good chance for advancement or progress. I looked up the synonyms and similar words, and the one that really stood out to me was that last one, a break. I feel like a lot of times I was just kind of catching a break. It's, but I was ready for it. So to me, I think an opportunity that I don't create, somebody else created for me, is just luck. And I think an opportunity that I create, that takes courage, and usually it was done by me asking. My dad was an excellent mentor for me and leader, and still is. And he always would say the worst thing somebody can say is no. And so if you listen to my story and look back, yes, I had a lot of favorable outcomes or favorable juncture of circumstances that you could call was my lucky break, right? If the clinic that I started at wasn't really big and the other clinic director didn't go off on leave, I probably wouldn't have become a clinic director. And if our practice manager never left, I would have never become a senior regional director. And if Greg decided to sell to some other company instead of Confluent, I probably wouldn't have had all the leadership opportunities. And those are all out of my control. But I think what I did about it was then I asked. So I asked, can I be the clinic director? Can I be a senior regional director? Can I do these things? And I was told yes, because I was ready for it. I've been told no plenty of times, and that's fine. You get used to it. But being ready for that, I think, is the most important thing, to continue to work on yourself. And that's where I've really turned internal of how can I be the best person? How can I be the best me? How can I be grounded and creative? And so I've found the things outside of work. I mean, work definitely is amazing, but my family, my wife, sports, friends, all of those things help keep me grounded so that then I'm ready when the next opportunity arises. So by pushing and asking, hey, Sarah, will you please reach out to Greg, the owner of Excel, and see would he be willing to interview me? If I didn't take that second step of just accepting, well, they got my resume and they don't want me, then I wouldn't be here. So making sure that you're ready to ask. I mean, I almost gave an entire talk for this exact program on how to ask because I do think it is so important. And I think if you're ready for it, why not ask? Again, the worst thing someone can say is no. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of all of you. I have my email here and our website, and I'm sure Emily will be able to share it as well. I would love to answer any questions, help guide or mentor anybody who's interested. So thank you all.